Good morning, or afternoon as the case may be. My name is Jeannie Montblanc, and on behalf of the Great Basin Fire Science Delivery Team and partners, I would like to welcome you to this webinar on Rangeland Fire Protection Associations, presented by Gordon Foster from the Oregon Department of Forestry. Before I introduce our speaker, I want to let you know that you may ask questions of the speaker or me at any time during the webinar by typing them into the questions pane of your control panel at the top right of your screen. I will keep questions for Gordon in the queue and will field them to him after the presentation. I will also show up in your questions pane as the Wildland Fire Lessons Learned Center, but it's really me, Jeannie. I also want to let you know that whatever you do in your control panel does not affect the webinar presentation, so you are welcome to type a test message or test your audio at any time during the webinar, and that will be fine. Now I would like to introduce our presenter. Mr. Gordon Foster is the Rangeland Fire Protection Coordinator for the Oregon Department of Forestry in Prineville, Oregon. He has worked for the Department of Forestry for 14 years. He started as a John Day Unit Forester with the Rangeland Fire Protection Program attached to the Unit Forester position. He started full-time with the Rangeland Fire Protection Program for Oregon in 2006. Prior to working for the Oregon Department of Forestry, he spent 35 years working for the U.S. Forest Service in fire and aviation management. Welcome, Gordon, and thank you for presenting today.
Thank you.
Now I will make you the presenter.
And I think you should see my screen.
I do.
Okay. And we'll try to get rid of the bottom part. There we go.
All right, there we go.
Well, good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you're at. Thank you, Jeannie, for the introduction. What I'm going to talk about today is Oregon's Rangeland Fire Protection Program. And what I find unique is Idaho also has a program, but it's different. And so we find that Oregon's program is unique. And as we go through here, you'll see some differences if any of you have worked with the Idaho program. And Oregon's program, I need to give you a little background about how fire protection works in Oregon. And it's really a four-tiered system. There's cities, and everybody's familiar with that, city fire departments. There's also rural fire districts, and these are set up as part of counties as special districts, elected boards of directors, etc. There's state fire protection with the Oregon Department of Forestry protecting forest lands, and then there's federal protection. And so, that's a mix of Bureau of Land Management, U.S. Forest Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and then there is National Park Service and Bureau of Indian Affairs. So in Oregon, which is unique among western states, all lands are not protected. It comes down to an issue. Protection is the responsibility of a landowner. In most other states, some agency has direct protection responsibility for all lands, but that's not the case in Oregon. So if you look at this map, you'll see that there's white land, green, and red. So the green is either cities or rural fire protection, which is, provides wildland and structural protection to the green land. The white lands are a combination of Oregon Department of Forestry, the U.S. Forest Service, and the Bureau of Land Management and U.S. Fish and Wildlife and Park Service and BIA. So you'll see that there's red lands, and those are private and state lands that have no organized fire protection. Oregon Department of Forestry only covers forest protection districts. So as I go through this, back in 2004, not 1904, 2004, the state went through a review of fire protection And it was a combination of the State Fire Marshal's Office, the Governor's Office, the Oregon Department of Forestry. I know the U.S. Forest Service was in it. The Bureau of Land Management had representatives. And from that, we looked at one of the major things that was happening. There was about 7 million acres of unprotected private land and 1 million acres of unprotected state land in Oregon. And that was quite a bit. And they were looking at ways to close that gap and how we could do that. And
Gordon, I'm so sorry to put you on hold for a second. I got a comment from one person that she can't see your presentation, so I'm wondering if other people have the same problem. No one else has brought that to my attention.
yeah.
If the audience can other people, if anyone else is having this problem, oh, I guess other people can see it. Okay, so Julie, it looks like it's something on your end. I'm really sorry. So hopefully that can get worked out, and if not, you can watch the video later.
For some reason, I just lost my. Hang on just a second. I'm going to
Okay.
back up a second and see if I can get this reset. I'm probably going to have to end it and then bring it back.
Okay.
There we go. Now I've got it back again. And I'll get the slide going again. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. The statewide fire review, and what we had was about 7 million acres. And again, under Oregon statute, landowners are responsible for protection. And the only place in Oregon statute that says that where there is mandatory protection is in forests. And what that says is a landowner can file a plan with the Board of Forestry for protecting their own land. They can be part of an association, a forest protective association, or Oregon Department of Forestry will do it for you. So Oregon Department of Forestry only protects essentially the forest lands. And so since 2004, there's been a decrease in the unprotected lands to approximately 3 million acres. There's still about 3 million acres of unprotected private land and 500,000 acres of unprotected state land. And the largest amount of the decrease has been attributed to the Rangeland Protection Program. And there's also been a small number of rural fire districts started in Eastern Oregon. When I get a call to come visit a community, I work very closely with the Oregon Fire Marshal's Office, and we go to talk with them and we ask them, what are your objectives? What objectives do you want to meet? And so between the Fire Marshal's Office and my program, the Rangeland program, we give them the alternatives for getting fire protection. And some of those have turned out to be rural fire districts. By far the largest amount has been the rangeland. And I'll give you a quick explanation of that. Rural fire districts and structural protection really don't fit well when you have 15, 20 miles between ranches. You couldn't provide adequate structural protection. And so by the time a structural truck could get there from a fire station, usually they're just protecting the exposures, and a lot of them in that case might have already caught fire. So the Rangeland Protection Program is a better model for these really rural areas. So talk a little about the Oregon statute. The Oregon statute was set up clear back about 1963, and it was a group of landowners that wanted the ability to protect their rangelands from fire. So landowners' request to be included in the Oregon protection system. Just kind of a note, last night we had a public hearing over in Baker County in far eastern Oregon, and those lands we're presented the report to the Board of Forestry, and they will be included in the Oregon protection system. So what happens? Board of Forestry holds a public hearing on including those lands into protection system, and that's what we did last night. Then the Board of Forestry and the landowners decide the level of protection and who will provide it. Now this is kind of unique. In this case, the landowners request to be included into the Oregon protection system. Then the Board of Forestry representative and the landowners decide what level of protection and who will provide it. In that statute, and I'll show you this in a minute, the landowners have a choice of asking the Oregon Department of Forestry to protect that land, or they can do it themselves through a Rangeland Fire Protection Association. And right now, and I put the number 18 in because I knew the hearing was going to be last night, so essentially there's 18 Rangeland Fire Protection Associations in Oregon. And I'll show you the distribution in a bit. And so this is the Oregon revised statute that covers this. And as you see, it's only 4 sections. It's really a small law that starts this. And I'll kind of go through it, 477, 315 through 325, and so you folks can look it up later if you'd like. And then one of the caveats in the program is it has to be east of the Cascades. And the other thing is it's primarily for rangeland or undeveloped land. And so we can't go into areas of, say, wheatland, agriculture land. It's been developed that way. And I'll show you why in a little bit the map looks like it does when we have this. And so it's primarily, as it says in the statute, sagebrush, juniper, and similar growth. Okay, it has to be outside of forest protection districts. Remember we talked about Oregon Department of Forestry provides forest protection along with 2 active forest protection associations. And this is where the landowners have chosen to do the protection themselves as a forest protection association. And so when we set up a rangeland association, it has to be outside of a forest protection district. And then we have the public hearing to protect those lands from fire. And the next thing, it includes, it brings these lands into the protection system. And this is kind of it's a step-by-step process where the landowners now determine the extent and type of protection. And this is unique. In the forest protection districts, the Board of Forestry makes sure that there is an adequate level of forest protection. The same thing happens in rangeland, but it's a joint decision between the Board of Forestry representative and the landowners that determine that extent and type. And this is unique, again, to Oregon. Oregon, the landowners have a great say in how the program is put together. And then once that they determine the level of protection, like I said before, the ODF or the Rangeland Association shall provide the protection. And if you ever worked with law, when it says shall, it means it will be done. And so we have to provide that protection. And then the next thing that's kind of interesting, the forester may enter into agreements or contracts with the Rangeland Fire Protection Association. If you notice how this statute is built, it goes down through some things and goes from 315 down to 320. Now we're jumped back up to 317. And then what it says in that subpart 2, it says the forester may assist a Rangeland Protection Association with organizing the association, training association members, acquiring firefighting equipment for the association, and assisting with the Rangeland Protection Association payments for liability insurance and other administrative costs. And so we can assist them with their liability insurance and other administrative costs, which is rather significant. And then the other part is, it says that the rangeland associations can enter into cooperative agreements or contracts with each other, or jointly or separately, and with the federal government, which the Bureau of Land Management districts have agreements with the rangeland associations to work together. So very positive part of this, and it keeps, because what you now have is you essentially have two jurisdictional agencies working on the same piece of ground, because most of the rangeland is intermixed, private rangeland, state rangeland is intermixed with usually BLM and U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So they have to be strong cooperators and work together. One of the things that the associations need to do in this process, they annually prepare a budget for the Board of Forestry approval. This is the same process that the forest protection districts go through, and the forest protection associations. And so every year the Board of Forestry approves the budgets, coming fiscal year budgets of these associations, and this is essentially saying we're authorizing their level of protection. Now, again, I want to kind of go back to the concept of these. The concept started in the early 1960s. Ironside was the first RPA that the concept started, and the agreement was signed in 1964. So the Ironside Rangeland Protection Association, this is their 50-year anniversary, and one thing we're doing is the Board of Forestry will recognize their contribution that they've had in the last 50 years. It's a pretty significant milestone. One of the other things is it's an independent association of landowners, which is different than how the state of Idaho does it. The other the rangeland associations that you hear of in Idaho actually work for the Idaho Department of Lands. In this case, these are independent associations. Again, they're authorized by the Board of Forestry, and then ODF supports them with grants and equipment and training. And you remember back in the statute, it authorizes we don't supervise them. ODF does not supervise them. We assist them. What we have is approximately 600 volunteer firefighters in the 18 associations, and there's approximately 190 engines. And these range, if you're familiar with typing on engines, these range from Type 7 engines, slip-on units, clear up to Type 4 fully set up fire engines. So lots of really nice stuff, and I'll talk about that a little more in your future here. Again, this whole concept is built upon neighbors helping neighbors, and it works really well for Oregon. Again, just kind of a little graphic of the ranchers request the public hearing, go to public hearing, Board of Forestry approves it, agreement with the Board of Forestry to the Rangeland Association to protect that rangeland, and the Oregon Department of Forestry supports. This next graphic kind of gives you the organizational status. The Board of Forestry is a 7-member board that's appointed by the governor. So it works directly for the governor's office. It reports directly to the governor. The state forester is officially the secretary to the Board of Forestry and works at the pleasure of the Board of Forestry. The state forester is also the CEO of the Oregon Department of Forestry. If you look at that, you'll notice the Oregon Department of Forestry, the Forest Protection Associations, and the Rangeland Protection Associations are in the same organizational level. And then by statute, the technical support is provided by the Oregon Department of Forestry. So so to see how they figure into the larger scheme, they don't report to the Oregon Department of Forestry, they report directly to the Board of Forestry, and then we support them. How they're organized in Oregon, and this is as opposed to a rural fire district. A rural fire district, which provides, again, wildland and structural fire protection, is an organization that's organized under county government. They're created as a special district. They're a taxing entity, and they have an elected board of directors. That elected board of directors then chooses a fire chief and goes on. The Rangeland Protection Associations are set up as nonprofit organizations, 501c3s. They have charter bylaws. They're registered with the Secretary of State in Oregon. They're also registered with the Department of Justice. They also are registered with the IRS. And so they go through a full process of organization, charter, bylaws. They also have to follow public meeting law, and so, but they're an independent organization. They have membership, and they have membership fees. Now, those membership fees are determined by the membership of the association and are documented in their bylaws. They have a board of directors. They have a fire supervisor. Their agreement with the Board of Forestry states that they will appoint a fire supervisor. That fire supervisor is the point of contact with the Board of Forestry representative. And as the Rangeland Fire Protection Coordinator, I am the Board of Forestry's representative to the associations. And then again, annually, they submit to the Board of Forestry their fiscal budget, the list of their association officers, and the list of their association equipment and personnel to fight fire. So they have to declare what sort of organization they have and how much. And this is a description of their level of protection. Again, ODF support authorized by statute. It's in the formation process. We do grant writing, fire suppression training, fire equipment procurement, technical support for fire suppression. One thing that we've started this last year with the support of the Bureau of Land Management, we have what we call liaisons, Rangeland Fire Protection liaisons, and when the federal agencies have a large fire, they bring in a fire team. This is a person that will work with the fire team and the Rangeland Association to kind of bring the parties together, and one, to assist the Rangeland Association in integrating into the ICS format, and then also assist the teams in communicating and working with the Rangeland Association. The other thing we do is we provide technical support for prescribed burning, and one of the things we do is we put on prescribed fire workshops for them, work in conjunction with OSU to do that. And then we also do fire suppression agency coordination. We assist the rangelands and the federal agencies in working together, and that's one of our big goals. And then, like we said before, reimbursements for certain administrative costs and the insurance. Funding support for these folks, besides their own membership, we have the Volunteer Fire Assistance Grants, which are grants that the state of Oregon administers for the U.S. Forest Service. And we get everything from fire equipment, shovels to trucks, communications equipment. We ensure that the communications that the associations get are compatible with the folks they're working with, and 99 times out of 100 it's federal, so we make sure that the equipment is narrow-banded and adequately communicates with our federal partners. And then training and training materials and equipment repairs. Then the other part is that insurance administrative costs again. Liability insurance, we will pay for more than just liability insurance, but I'll give you some examples of the insurance. Through the FEP program and the firefighter program, which we acquire a lot of fire trucks through, one of the requirements is that they get vehicle liability insurance. So that's the only requirement there. But if the associations choose to get corporate liability insurance for their association or for their directors and officers, we will do that. We will reimburse them for that. The legislature did that about 6 years ago because they recognized that one of the largest costs these folks have is insurance. And it'll run anywhere from $1,500 to $9,000 a year, depending on how much equipment and how large the association is. And then we'll do their administrative cost reimbursement. And examples of that are the Secretary of State filing fees to keep registered as a nonprofit are about $50 a year. And then with the Oregon Department of Justice, it's $10 a year. The IRS is $500 a year, not a year, but that's a one-time fee. And so there's any administrative costs that they have to incur, and then we'll reimburse them for that. Switch gears a little bit. This kind of gives you an idea of, we'll talk a bit about the equipment that we get. And we get it through two programs. One is the Federal Excess Personal Property Program, FEP, and that is a U.S. Forest Service program that's administered by the state. And we get this equipment not only for the rangeland programs, but for rural fire districts and cities with less than 10,000 population. And so you'll notice there, you'll see some green trucks. The green truck in the upper right, that was an ex-Forest Service vehicle. It's a 1979, and it's still running fine. The bottom right vehicle is a Forest Service Type 6 engine that was acquired through this program. And if you look at the others, you'll see, slip-on units, all kinds of trucks. The firefighter program is a fairly new program to Oregon. It's a Department of Defense program where we get military equipment to be used for firefighting purposes. So I'll give you a little example of what happens here. If you look in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see a military 5-ton truck. And you look up in the upper left-hand corner, this is what they turn into. And not all of them are quite this pretty, but this is one association in Crane, which is in outside of Burns, and this is what they've done with a 5-ton truck, taken and turned it into a really nice-looking water tender. This is the same Humvee. The Crane Association got it, equipped it with a 200-gallon tank, and painted it up, and we get some very good use out of this military equipment. This is a D7 dozer. Actually, the department got 10 of these. Of those 10, there's 3 of these in the Rangeland Fire Protection Program. These are brand new dozers, never been set foot on the ground. The grousers, never been out, never pushed. They have, I think the most hours on one of them is 40 hours, and the only thing we can figure is they kept them, idled them once in a while, but they were really nice equipment. So again, pass through into this program. And then here's just some Forest Service vehicles that have gone through. So we get really nice Type 6 engines, Type 4 engines, and it goes straight into support of these rangeland associations. Training, what we do is we provide a basic fire training. The level of training is determined by the Rangeland Protection Association. What we do recommend is that we follow the PMS 310-1, which is the standard wildland fire training curriculum, and then we keep a kind of a training database for these folks. And then the other thing is we have a sim table. If folks have never seen one of those, if you just Google sim table, you can see what it is. But we use this as a training aid for the rangeland associations, and what it does is it is a high-tech version of the old sand table, and it's a neat training tool. Again, the prescribed fire training, we've done this in conjunction with OSU, and we're planning more workshops in the future for the rangeland associations. Give you a idea of the acreage in Oregon that's covered by rangeland protection associations. There's about a little over 15 million acres. Now this is area inside their boundary. Most of what you see here is federal land, but the private land in the rangeland associations is right at 4 million acres. And then you'll see also a 500,000 acres of state land, and then the federal acres within that. So you can see there's an intermix and a strong federal co-op with these rangeland associations. This kind of gives you an idea. If you'll notice the last one on the list, Lookout Glasgow, Baker County, established in 2014. Well, we just had their public hearing, and I couldn't resist putting them on the list. So if you'll notice, 1963 to 1998, there was only one association. 2 associations, actually 3 associations started in 1998. We had 1 association disband, and that area was absorbed by the Crane Rangeland Protection Association in 2001. But you'll notice 2000, 2001, and then 2006, and then you'll notice from there, all this has been word of mouth. We have never gone out and sold the program. County commissioners start to talk, landowners start to talk. The Oregon Cattlemen's Association has been a big player in this program, and the word of mouth has spread the word, and they've done a lot of work. This kind of gives you a scope of where the rangeland associations are. Somebody asked the other day, well, actually asked last night at the public hearing, well, where can more rangeland associations go? And so it's so new that if you look at this area, this is down south of French Glen. This area was just absorbed into the French Glen Association last week, and I haven't had time to change this map. I've changed the base map, but this was included in the system. This area over here is Christmas Valley, Fort Rock, and that area, there's been an interest there, and I've sent information over for them to talk about. They're going to gather a group of landowners, and we'll be working with those folks. This area is the Summer Lake area, and then down on to south of that in the Paisley area, and we've talked with them a couple times, and it takes a while for them to get their interest up and figure out what they want to do. But so got that. The other part is this part of Wasco County. This is rangeland. We've had discussions with people here, and we leave it up to them. We don't pressure them. We leave it up to them, and so they've shown an interest in joining. There's another area right in here. This is the Doofer area, and there's been interest in forming a rangeland association or a rural fire district right in here. This area around here, this is Burns. You see the cursor? This is the Burns area, and most of this is developed ag land, but there is no fire protection. And so there are ongoing discussions with the county and the locals there, and so the rangeland associations may expand a little bit, but it won't cover all this area, because normally this is the 10-acre kind of homestead area. Remember I talked in the statute, we talk about undeveloped land. If you'll notice, most of this land up here in Morrow County, this is wheat land, and it's all ag land, but they do not have any fire protection. It's the same way around the community of Pendleton, and up in here in the, just east of Boardman, Hermiston. And this area is an area that up right on the Washington border, we have had discussions with the county and the landowners in this area, and there is interest up here to form an association. So if you look over here in Baker County, you'll see some little isolated pieces, and we've discussed with the folks in the halfway area about forming, encourage a rural fire district there, in the same way with these little pieces here. So that's kind of the scope of the status of the protection system with the rangeland associations. So one of the significant fire seasons was 2012, and we had 7 large fires in 3 counties, and there was, this number, this 1.2 million acres kind of ranges back and forth, 1.2, 1.4 million acres, but this was the 7 large fires. There were 6 rangeland protection associations involved in those fires. There was hundreds of hours, personnel and equipment hours. And remember, all these are volunteers. There is no tax. There was no tax money that has gone into this. These are people, neighbors helping neighbors, and protecting their rangeland. and again, the thousands of dollars in fuel and supplies. But I think the real success of these programs are the small fires that didn't get big. And these fires, if you think about if a rangeland association or the 18 can keep one fire from going to a project fire, look at the millions of dollars that are saved. And so we see a great value in Oregon of supporting the rangeland program. So landowner benefits, lands are brought into the protection system, they protect their investments, they have assistance in the form of equipment, grants, training, tech support. They can keep fires small by attacking them quick. In the Jordan Valley area, which is in southeastern Malheur County, there's equipment at 28 different ranches. So they're a lot closer to a lot of these fires. They have a good radio system, and that's their goal. Attack them quick and keep them small. And one of the other things they can do is utilize this equipment for their rangeland burning projects. If they're burning fence rows, ditches, type conversions, this equipment is available for them, and we encourage it. And then it's also a landowner benefit. It's a point of coordination with the agencies. And last night, Bob Naris and Sam DeLong from the Vail BLM district were at the public hearing. And what it does is the BLM really can't enter into an agreement with non-entities. So this provides a way to work with a single entity, an agency, to coordinate fire activity on many ranches at once. So this is a big benefit to the federal agencies and the landowners. We look at the benefits to Oregon, that 11 of these rangeland associations border directly to the forest protection districts. And those forest protection districts, we look at this rangeland, which is usually extremely hot and dry, very flammable, as the wick to the forest land. So if those associations can keep a fire from burning into the forest protection districts, there's a big benefit to the timber program in Oregon, the private timberland in Oregon. Again, keep fires small, keep them from spreading to forest land, and there's an economic benefit by reducing the potential large fire costs for a relatively small taxpayer investment. If you go back and you look at our insurance, we have a budget of about $30,000 a year to reimburse them for their insurance and administrative costs. And then that's very small, and then it's the support for my position, the vehicle, office space, and that's essentially what the input from the state of Oregon is into this program, where we have about 600 volunteers and 190 plus engines, plus a lot of other equipment. And then it organizes all their equipment, their water trucks, their dozers, their graders into the program. So we get a really large benefit for a very small taxpayer cost. So some of the challenges in the future. One thing that's come up is the sage-grouse habitat conservation. Fire is one of the biggest threats, or is the largest threat to sage-grouse habitat. And this we see in Oregon as one of the major ways to protect that sage-grouse habitat. And going to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the governor's plan relies heavily on the rangeland program to provide that support and that fire suppression support and prevention. And then ODF support to the RFPAs. We know we're going to need to boost that up because we're looking at 2 to possibly 3 or 4 people to be in this program to support the associations. The other one's the interagency coordination, and there's some challenges there. And we're working through those challenges, and but we recognize them and we're dealing with them. And then the other is grazing management. The RFPAs and some of the ag research is, we're in discussions, and this goes back to the interagency coordination. There may be some ways to use grazing, managed grazing, to reduce the fire hazard in sage-grouse habitat. And so these are the same groups of ranchers that have permits on the federal grazing land, and so it provides a forum to get these discussions on the table. So, bottom line, what we look at this is it's an opportunity for local landowners to protect their own and their neighbor's property where there's no services, and it's filling in the gap on the unprotected lands in Oregon. So we think it's a very strong and positive program. And so we in Oregon are looking at ways to increase our support to them. So I guess I'll open it up for questions. So, Jeannie?
Great. Thank you so much. All right, the first question is from Robin Schofield, and it is, you talked briefly about training for the RPAs by the ODF. Are the RPAs required by the ODF to get retrained each year, similar to the forestry guys? Do any of the RPAs go through any medical EMS training?
I'll go back, and that's a good question. They determine the level of training. They go through basic fire training. They get to choose whether they do the refresher. I do a lot of refresher trainings, and along with the BLM and U.S. Fish and Wildlife and ODF and other locations, we work and we provide them training at their request. We do not require it because, if you remember, they don't work for us. We support them. They work for the Board of Forestry, and their agreement with the Board of Forestry states that they will adequately train their they're not employees, they're volunteers. And so we go back and rely on Oregon OSHA. Do they have EMS training? Well, as you know, in rural communities, the rural EMS is provided by those rural people, and these are the same people. So one Rangeland Association actually has a registered ambulance in Oregon, and they provide that for their community. Others, their ambulance, they're on the local ambulance groups, because a lot of this is remote, and so yes, they are involved.
Thank you. Jesse Abrams asks, can you expand on the issue of RPA roles in initial attack on federal lands? How common is this? What challenges does this bring up?
Very good question. If you want to look at Oregon Revised Statute 477.100, yes, they do. They do initial attack, and that Oregon statute essentially says that, and it protects the landowner, and that this is kind of unique. It says no agency shall prohibit a landowner or their agent, in this case their agent would be the Rangeland Association, from fighting fire on their land or any fire threatening their land. And so the Rangeland Associations have the jurisdiction for private and state land within their boundary and any fire threatening their boundary. So when it comes to a fire on federal land, the agreement between the BLM, or I'll just say BLM, and understand that that recognizes U.S. Fish and Wildlife. I'm so used to saying it. They recognize that, and it's written into their cooperative agreements. So yes, they do, and that happens all the time.
Did you get to the challenges part?
Oh, the challenges. Yes, the challenges are the issue of everything from personal protective equipment to training to communications and those kind of things. All the rangeland associations now have P25 compatible radio systems, so they're totally compatible with the BLM, U.S. Fish and Wildlife. In fact, the BLM donated a bunch of radios, Medix King handhelds. The Oregon Department of Forestry just did, and those are being distributed now to them, so they'll have totally compatible radio systems to the point where they're using exactly the same radios on the fire ground. The other thing, we just acquired 175 more Kenwood mobile radios, so we have it. But the real issue is the federal agencies have questioned the training and experience, and what we assure them is that the associations meet all state law even when it doesn't apply. And so I'd say out of the associations, I know only one association that has not met S190, S130 training level. But they have met the Oregon OSHA training level.
Great, thank you. I don't see any further questions from the audience, but I have two questions. One, when you mentioned the BLM has, given the statute, has the ability to interact with the RPAs, and I'm wondering at what level is that? Is that at your level, the coordination of all the RPAs, or is it at the individual, like the 18 individual RFPA level? Actually,
what they need to do is they need to interact at the individual level. Mm-hmm. We try to provide a forum where we can do it all at once, and we have in the past. And every year we have a Rangeland Fire Protection Summit, and we invite all the rangeland associations to come in, the BLM, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, the Oregon Department of Forestry districts, the Fire Marshal's Office, Department of State Lands, because most of the state land that is protected is Department of State Lands. Also, Oregon Parks, they protect Oregon Parks land. And so we have this forum, and then the associations are just starting into a process where they're forming an association of rangeland associations to coordinate their responses rather than acting as 18 separate, that they are going to try to get in line where they can and where they want to get in line and present a coordinated response to different issues.
Thank you. All right, Robin Schofield asks, I might have missed this, but when talking about the FFP, who renovates the equipment that comes from the DoD?
Very good question. Normally, we try to have, in fact, there's a person working right now outside the office here, and he's doing that. It depends on each association. If you saw the trucks, the Humvee and the 5 tons, they're all painted up. The ability of each of these associations to do that kind of equipment is widely varied. And so if they have the capability, we let them do it. If they don't have the capability, we probably won't give them a piece. We will not give them equipment that they're not able to, get in service within a year. If they don't have the capability to do that, we don't pass that equipment on to them. We do a small amount of renovation here, and we're looking at doing more as this program progresses, and it's going before the Oregon legislature here in this next legislative period, to increase to be able to help them a little more in that area. So most of it is the rangeland associations, and we do a small amount here.
Thank you. Another question, how active are RPAs in doing prescribed fires or other preventative work? And are these activities supported by equipment, training, etc., associated with an organization, an organization such as RPA?
Yes. One project, I'll just give you, this is kind of a very large one. There's one project that the Post Paulina Association has been working on. It's a multi-year project. It's 46,000 acres. And it goes over multiple years, and it's intermixed with BLM land. It adjoins Forest Service. And so the BLM and the Forest Service are partners, or I should say the BLM is partner in that, because Forest Service is outside of the association area, but it's adjoining. So they're tied into that. We've done the prescribed fire training for the Post Paulina Association. We're just starting the prescribed fire training for the Warner Valley Association. Been working in Jordan Valley with landowners and developing burn plans over there and laying out projects there. And one of these days we'll probably go down there and do prescribed fire, doing a workshop. These are big things. These aren't one day things. These are major training sessions where they go through the whole aspects of why you burn, noxious weeds, consequences, liabilities, organization, the burning organization, managing a prescribed burn, everything down to lighting techniques and assistance available. So it's quite an in-depth program.
Great, thanks. I don't see any more questions in the queue. And my second question was, do you have any general advice for other Western states that want to start something like this?
Well, I really think for the other states that want to do it, and I know Nevada's been looking at this, and I've been working with a couple of the landowners up from down in the Winnemucca area, and then also and this is interesting, a rural electric co-op in Nevada.
Wow.
And in providing information because they're interested in protecting their infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
Desert poles burn real quick, and so they've been working with the state forester in Nevada, and I understand there's legislation. What I think they need to do is, you can look at the Oregon model, which they're independent. They're an independent agency, the rangeland associations are. Or you look at the Idaho model, where they're a subset of the forestry agency. The thing I see, the difference is, under the Oregon statute, we're able to provide that technical support. In Idaho, the governor set up $400,000 to do that, but they haven't got into the FEP program, the FFP program, the grant program, and some of those others, and like the administrative costs are horrendous. And so each state takes a different way to do it. Montana has a model that's very good, and it actually takes the rangeland associations, or a concept similar, and sets the ranchers up to fight fire, and then when they get overwhelmed, the county has an organization, and then when the county gets overwhelmed, then the state comes in with support, fire suppression support, which is a good model. So I think each state's got to look at the pros and cons of what will fit in your state. And the reason the Oregon model works good in Oregon is because it's the landowner's responsibility under state statute to protect their lands from fire. And so different states have different organic acts that set up their forestry departments. Like, Nevada covers the whole state. Utah, the same thing. So how they get the landowners involved has to be tailored to the way that their state laws are set up.
Great, thank you. All right, that looks like the last question. We would greatly appreciate it if you would take our 3-question survey of this webinar that will appear after the webinar has ended. And I wanted to let you know that a recording of this webinar will be sent to you automatically through the GoToWebinar system tomorrow, and I will also post it on our Great Basin Fire Science Delivery website within the next couple of weeks. If you have any more questions regarding this webinar or have requests for future webinars, please email me or call me at any time. Thank you all for your participation today, and thank you, Gordon, for your presentation.
Thank you.
All right, have a great day.